me. I gotta have my Zoom ready for Kenny. Good tune. It does on this Wednesday, hump day. Love it. We'll have some conversation coming up with Kenny Mayne about 13 minutes from now. Looking forward to talking with the former ESPN SportsCenter anchor, now with the Hey Mayne podcast. And you can catch that every week. He's got Steve Kerr on tomorrow's podcast. The podcast dropping tomorrow. Isn't that what the kids say? So we'll have Kenny Mayne joining us for 2 segments. So a little special conversation, I guess you could say, because we'll talk to him from about 25 after until about 55 past. So looking forward to chatting with him. Ross Tucker will join us, NFL analyst, does a great job with Westwood One on their NFL broadcasts on Sundays. You could also catch him on the Ross Tucker NFL podcast, among other podcasts. Like I said, if I listed them all, we'd be out of time. I'd be like, we're done. We got nothing left. So let's talk about the Denver Broncos for a second. Because every week, it feels like, them and the Packers both. It feels like the sort of situation where every week you think it can't get worse, it gets worse. That's sort of where we are right now for this, organization. They go and make this move in the offseason to go and get Russell Wilson. They give up everything to Seattle to get him. I mean, they go and bring in, they go and get a whole slew of draft picks and hand them off to Seattle, thinking, you know what? What's a first-round pick? We're going to be a division winner. We're going to be near the top of the division. We'll certainly be a wild card team. So it's not like that draft pick's going to be a top pick. We have our quarterback of the future anyway. What do we need to go? We don't need no first-round pick. So what if we give up the equivalent of the draft pick farm in order to go get an aging Russell Wilson? Now, some people may have thought they'd given up too much. Some people may have thought that $250 million for a aging Russell Wilson was too much, but there were certainly some people that said, hey, the only thing missing in Denver is a standout quarterback. We've got everything else. We got a running game. We're good defensively. Now we got a good new young head coach, Nathaniel Hackett, with great play calling. We're going to be dynamic offensively. And then you get Russell Wilson, you get Nathaniel Hackett, and you get absolutely nothing out of it. You get a banged-up Russell Wilson. He had the shoulder issue. You get a Russell Wilson that comes out in the first game, and Nathaniel Hackett basically says, yeah, you know what, a 73-yard field goal or whatever the hell it was from Brandon McManus. You know what, a stupid, long, unmakeable field goal is a better idea than putting the ball in the hands of our $250 million quarterback. And then it just piled on from there. It literally, I still will insist that if game one in Seattle had ended just a little differently, and by that I mean with a victory for Denver in those closing seconds instead of, an entire catastrophe. If that game had ended different, the whole narrative around this team and the whole way the season goes down may completely wind up being different. But as we know, it certainly didn't go that way. If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, every day would be Christmas. I'm surprised I actually remember that one. So now you have Denver. As bad as it could be, they're 3-8. They're one of the worst teams in the league. Hey, but at least they get the 6th overall pick in the NFL. Or at least they get the, let's see, which pick would it be? Oh, the 4th. They're getting the 4th. Oh, wait. You don't even get the 4th overall pick because it's going to Seattle. Nice job there. And then it gets worse because the team continues to lose games. And they continue to lose a lot of relatively close games, this week notwithstanding. But then it continues. Now you've got a situation where not only is the team probably down on the head coach and Nathaniel Hackett, but you've got a QB that's seen his skills dramatically deteriorate. And now you're finding out, reportedly, that the quarterback that you just paid $250 million for doesn't have a lot of friends on the team. And if there's one sport where you cannot alienate your teammates or be alienated by those teammates, it's the NFL. Headline: Russell Wilson's wife, Sierra, invited the entire Broncos team to his birthday party, but only half of them showed up. Mike Kliss of 9 News in Denver reported that about half the team attended a celebration throw by Wilson's wife, Sierra, for his 34th birthday. Kliss tweets, there's been some gossip about Russell Wilson standing in the locker room. Here's some context. Per source, Wilson's wife threw him a birthday party last night, and it looked like about half the team was there on the player's day off. Why do people have to be so hurtful? Kliss writes. I mean, look, if they don't like him, should they fake it? And then the question we have to start asking is, why don't his teammates like him? And there's been speculation out there as to whether the Broncos teammates have already grown tired with his act. And that he's lost the locker room because, it's one thing to say all the right things, which Russell Wilson tries to do. But if you're not following through on it behind the scenes in the locker room, those guys, they're going to see straight through it. We're not in the locker room, so all we get are the platitudes. All we get is the rhetoric from Russell Wilson. But if he's not following through on that rhetoric in the locker room, those guys are going to see right through it. And apparently, that's what's going on. Now, of course, Nathaniel Hackett, it's not like he doesn't have anything else to worry about with the fact that this team is craptastic right now. Now Nathaniel Hackett has to worry about trying to sort of pick up the pieces here and make this thing respectable. And now instead he's got to deal with questions about whether or not Russell Wilson has, friends on the team or doesn't have friends on the team. So Nathaniel Hackett was asked about it today. He said, to me, it's all gossip. We have a fantastic locker room. Look at a guy like Russ. I've never seen anybody work so hard. Never seen anybody try to embrace a team like he has. Russ is awesome, and we need to just do better as a team, and all that stuff is what it is. Is what it is. So it is something. He's not saying it isn't true. He's saying it's gossip. Is what it is. I love Russ. Well, of course, because your future is attached to his, which doesn't mean much for you right now. Guard Dalton Risner said, that's just hilarious in my opinion. That's funny because I don't think it's true. I know it's not true. I feel like all year he can't catch a break and people are making up rumors about him, whether he's not a good teammate or he's lost the locker room, whatever it is. A lot of it is so outlandish to me. Here's what I know after doing this for 28 years. Talking about sports, reporting on sports, you name it. Here's the one thing I can tell you, and it's one of the oldest adages in the book. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Did it mean half the team didn't show up? Maybe not. Did 40% of the team not show up? 30%? I would want every guy there. It's like that story. You remember the movie Draft Day with Kevin Costner? And there's a point in the movie where they're thinking about drafting this quarterback, and they uncover a story that none of his teammates attended his, 21st birthday party or something like that. It's that sort of thing. It makes you wonder. It makes you scratch your head. Why would that be? I mean, this situation could be completely broken. A head coach may not fix it if you've got a locker room that doesn't like the quarterback and doesn't believe he can win. And I don't even know where you begin to go if you're the Broncos in that situation because you're saddled with this guaranteed quarterback for Russell Wilson. Nathaniel Hackett is trying to stay optimistic.
Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, we'll have to see if we can fix that audio here. What do we got?
Wherever it is, especially, a quarterback, certain coaches, certain players. If you lose, you're going to get criticism. It's that simple. And the idea is that you got to keep your head down. You got to keep working. You got to do everything you can to put the team in the best position, and they got to feel that and know that. And that's something that Russ does. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, he doesn't get affected. He keeps coming out here working. I mean, heck, he might work harder, and I didn't think you could. So I think that, I give him so much credit for that, is to keep his head down, keep working with all the different people that he's gone out on that field with. I mean, I just give him so much credit for that. Just all the different lineups that we've had. I mean, he just keeps grinding, keeps trying to make a play, keeps fighting no matter what.
Yeah, Nathaniel Hackett fighting too for his job. It ain't going to get any better for the Broncos, though. We know what their schedule is the rest of the way. And, well, they aren't even going to get any draft picks out of it. Tough time to be a Denver sports fan, let's be honest. Outside of the Nuggets, what do you really have to look forward to? We're coming back. Talk to Kenny Mayne, formerly of ESPN, now with the Hey Mayne podcast. We'll get his thoughts on that, what it's like working with Caesar Sportsbook, all those ridiculous Peyton Manning and Eli Manning commercials with JB Smoove. Don't go anywhere. Lots to do on this edition of the Cash In at SportsMap Radio. Not really. That was last year. I'm talking about this year. Yeah, maybe. All right, I got to call Kenny. Start this meeting. We roll along on this Wednesday. Get back to the calls in the next hour of the show, 800-224-2004. Tweet at me, as always, at The Back Page. Again, on Twitter, at The Back Page. I said we had a special guest on the show tonight, and I wasn't joking. Ross Tucker will join us in the next hour. No, I'm just kidding. Kenny Mayne is going to be our guest for the next couple of segments. Former SportsCenter anchor, now the host of the Hey Mayne podcast. Also doing some stuff with Caesar Sportsbook and doing all sorts of fun things. I watched him during the Olympics with Kerry Champion, which was fun. It's crazy. It's crazy. The last time I talked to you, Kenny, believe it or not, you won't remember this because life is just way too crazy. But last time I talked to you was about 13 years ago. And at the time, you were out promoting. I was doing Afternoon Drive in Hartford, Connecticut. And you were doing the Kenny Mayne Main Street. It was called Main Street. Yes. You were hosting Main Street. You had that short series that was on like YouTube, and it was amazing. Like, it was one of my favorite things that I ever watched. I still say to this day, I've never laughed harder in an office in my life than when I saw the episode with you and Van Pelt doing the rewrites, the fixes. It was fixes. I've never laughed harder in my entire life than that episode. Was it as funny?
There was so much truth in it.
Was it as funny to do it as it was for me to watch it?
Yeah, it was hard because Van Pelt's very funny, and for those who don't know, this was a little sitcom thing we did. We were a little ahead of our time. This would have been a good ESPN Plus thing or Somebody Plus thing, but it was on ESPN.com. And Josh Shelov, Todd Pellegrino came to me with this idea, like, what if we fictionalize your life at ESPN, and then we'll get some actors.
Recording in progress.
Basically, I've just been asked that you can record this. Sure,
yeah, I'm just recording.
You have my permission.
That's all right.
Is this just nobody's seeing us?
Nobody's seeing you. You're just audio. I'm just recording it for myself.
Very well. You never know. So we started doing this, and everybody who was in that show has gone on to great success. They left me behind, but we got Aubrey Plaza and Allison Becker, John Glazer, Ben Schwartz, Chris Smith, John Mulaney. Who am I leaving out? Lenny Jacobson. There was somebody else, a couple of I'm forgetting the name. So I apologize to that person. You know who you are.
Yeah.
So the very first episode was called Fixes.
Oh, it's great.
And the premise, for those who are, most SportsCenter viewers get it by now, that there's the last show of the night, and they probably stay really late if there's overtime games or extra inning games. And if there's a problem, if there's a serious or whatever it is, you have to stay until the big boss on site says, we're done. We've done enough. Then you get to go home, and then that show would repeat. In the old days, it would repeat all the way to like noon or 1 or whatever. So the premise of this one was that I was having a difficult time saying Rafa Nadal's name. Kept calling him Rafi or something. And Allison Becker, my producer's in my ear and begging me, and Scott Van Pelt telling me his marriage is falling apart and it's all my fault because he's never home. On and on and on. And yeah, it was definitely one of my favorites as well.
And then you finally get it right at the end and go, Rafa Nadal, Federer.
And then
Federer.
When we finally got it right, the cameraman, played by John Glazer, forgot to roll or whatever his, he didn't turn the button on. Yeah.
It was great. That show was so much fun. It had to be a blast to make. So I want to talk some sports first, and then we'll get into some fun things later. I was talking about this last night on the show. I know they lost on Sunday to the Raiders, so it's a sucky week to get young because they're coming off a loss. Defense obviously isn't what this organization in Seattle is used to. But if I had given you at the start of the year, given what the expectations were around football, 6-5 through week 12, and still very much in the NFC West divisional race or a wild card spot, you'd signed up for that, right?
Oh, for sure. I would have taken that in a minute. Not that I thought they were going to be an utter failure. Like, I remember doing an interview with somebody, I think it was July or August, and I said, I can't predict. It's impossible predicting the NFL. Anybody who thinks they can is an idiot. But I said, let's trust in Pete. He's given us 10 years or more of really good football. He says he knows what he's doing. He's going to work it out. He's going to figure out and fill in the holes. didn't know Gino would be what he's turned out to be. I thought he'd be okay. I didn't think it was like, oh my God, we got stuck with Gino. I didn't think of it that way at all. I just didn't know that he would do what he's done. He's just taken over, showed such confidence. And it also kind of shows the fine line between who plays and who doesn't, right? So if Russ hadn't left, right, he was probably just going to sit on the bench for another few years, and there you go, he's done. But instead, he gets his chance, and he's really made the most of it. And I love Kenneth Walker, too, the running back.
Oh, yeah, he could be Rookie of the Year, certainly. He's got an offensive Rookie of the Year potential for sure. You know, I think about the Geno Smith thing, and you played quarterback. So, you played quarterback in college, so you know a thing or two about the position. And a lot of times when guys get written off, they don't ever get another opportunity. They'll sit, as a backup for a number of years and then eventually retire. They might get a start or two here and there. I wonder how many quarterbacks, after being a starter, I think of Charlie Batch as one of these guys. Tommy Maddox was one of these guys. You've seen it a few times where guys go to the bench for a number of years and then get another opportunity to actually be a starter in a situation and can be successful. And I wonder how much of it has to do with just the ability to watch the game on the sideline after having played the position and then starting to understand and sort of process things differently when you get a second opportunity. Is there something to that?
Yeah, I mean, he's gotten to see it all take place, knowing if I got my chance, I can do it this way, seeing the rights and the wrongs of it. But the other part you give him credit for is just staying in it emotionally and mentally, not just taking the check, which is a really good check to be a backup. Greatest job in the world, right? You rarely play. You're not going to get hurt and you get paid a lot of money. However, you also have to have that kind of inner drive, like, hey, I want to be out there. I want the ball. I want to make those chances. And suffer the danger of being an NFL quarterback. And I'm really happy for him. I don't know him. I don't know if I've ever met him, maybe once, but really thrilled. I'm from that area, so that's my team.
Oh, yeah.
And I love how he's responded. And like you said, they win a few more games and they're back in front and they got a really good shot at the playoffs when a lot of people had written them off.
Yeah, they certainly do. Pete Carroll, a Hall of Fame coach?
I think so. He's had a great run in Seattle. It's so funny when people get used to something and they're so mad when, they don't win the whole thing or they don't succeed in the way that was expected, when if you really stand back from it, every year, except for a couple, they're making the playoffs. And once you make the playoffs, you got a shot at the Super Bowl. Right? It all starts over. So I'm happy that we picked him way back when we did. I remember interviewing him. I was doing the Seattle Sports Awards show, and Pete had just come on to the Seahawks, ran over to meet him and did some little comedy bit, that ran in our Seattle Sports Awards show. So I've been a fan from day one, and I don't really even get the criticism, which is silly sometimes, especially given the success, that he coaches like a college coach. Like, no, he doesn't. He coaches like a professional coach. He makes the playoffs most of the time. So he's just a different guy. He's fun. He's energetic. He's young for his age, so I'm happy that Seattle picked him and that he stayed on as long as he has.
And it gets better, Kenny. This team's going to get the Broncos. I mean, it's the fleecing of all fleecings. Oh. They're going to get the Broncos pick in the draft in 2023 in the first round, which is probably going to be a top 5 or 6 pick. So they could go get their future QB potentially and be able to afford to sit him for a year or two because you've got somebody who can play the position.
Yeah, we got some momentum out there. The Mariners turned it around, made the playoffs, could have beaten Houston. Could have beaten Houston 3 straight. We lost 3 straight, but each game, Seattle was definitely in control of the first one for sure. Seattle Storm is pretty fun to watch. Kraken getting a little bit better. And, hopefully we get an NBA team up there one day.
The Kraken, their AHL affiliate, I live in Palm Springs, California. The Kraken's AHL affiliate's going to be here. They start playing in December out here.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I've been to a few. If you got to get up to that new building, the Climate Pledge Arena.
Yeah, I've driven by it. I've driven by it a few times.
I saw a bunch of Storm games this past summer. Got to see Sue Bird, and then I got to a few Kraken games last year and this year. So yeah, the place is amazing. They took the old Seattle Coliseum, the thing that was built for the 1962 Olympics, right by the Space Needle, totally reinvented it, left the footprint, but fancied it up, made it very 2022.
Yeah, and Julio Rodriguez is really some special kind of talent. We're talking with Kenny Mayne. We got another segment with him coming up here. Stick around. We'll get back to calls in the next hour of the show. Ross Tucker will join us about an hour from now on the program. Get some thoughts with him on a whole bunch of different NFL items around the league. But I got some more things I want to talk about with Kenny. He's doing some fun things with Caesar Sportsbook, so we'll get to that. Also, the Kenny Mayne, the Hey Mayne podcast starring Kenny Mayne. We'll get to that coming up in the next segment as well. And what's it like doing these commercials with JB Smoove and all these guys at Caesar Sportsbook? We'll talk about that with Kenny Mayne and a whole bunch more as we continue. It is the Cash In. Glad to have you with us. Wednesday edition of the show on SportsMap Radio. All right, we're in a break, Kenny.
There it is. You know what? I want to revise and extend my remarks at the top. Left out Washington football. Their quarterback is really good.
Yeah, he is. So I
was pissed that UNLV
continuing with Kenny Mayne on this Wednesday, giving us some time. We appreciate it. Getting into it with him.
Extend my remarks.
Yeah, you want to go ahead.
We left out Washington football. They had a really good season. The quarterback should be Heisman nominated. I mean, it was fun to see what they did. UNLV is where I played and where I went, and that's where my first loyalty is. But after that, I'm definitely a Washington Husky fan. And then I just moved to the West Coast. I don't even have that problem like other people do. Like you can't root for the other team. It's like, no, like I'll root for the conference next. Just like I'd root for the Seahawks first, but then I'd root for the division next.
Right. I got you.
I don't think that's crazy. Some people, like, they draw a line. I will not root for Washington State or Oregon or whatever it is, but I'm West Coast for sure. That's my bias, and Seattle in particular.
Well, I got to ask you. I mean, I'm from Connecticut originally, so I'm born and raised there. You're done with ESPN now, what, about a year and a half, something like that. Why the hell are you still there? You can move back to the West Coast anytime.
Well, I got remarried, and we each had 2 daughters. So there's 4 altogether. One's graduated Boulder. One's at Boston U. I just wrote the last tuition check today. Next one's at USC in Los Angeles. And then the last one's still in high school. So we need to let her finish back here in West Hartford. And I get to Seattle as much as I can. I was just there a couple weeks ago. I definitely miss the West. But, yeah, we're mostly back here.
You going to move back there, though, when the kids are all done and everything, or what?
If the comet doesn't hit, we'll just debate things at that time, based on circumstances.
Fair enough. So let's talk about the Hey Mayne podcast. What gave you the impetus sort of to do this? I talked to you last year. Full disclosure, I talked to Kenny last year about doing some things with my company, and because we're this new media company and we're doing some things. And Kenny made it clear. He's like, I do not want to host a sports talk show 5 days a week, and I respect that, but I'm curious, what made you want to do the podcast? What was the goal or angle that you wanted to take on that?
Really, just because it's so boring in Hartford that I needed to do something to fill up my days. It's like a hobby. Odyssey is the company that produces it, and a bunch of different companies came to me with an idea. Some of it was vague, some was specific, and the only one that kind of stood out was these guys saying, "What do you want to do?" And I said, the only thing I can think of is I just want to. It's sort of like when people would ask, what's the angle on a story, or what's the point of doing that? I said, how about it's good? How about we're going to try to make it good. There's no hook. There's no specialty. There's no nothing. It's just me interviewing people about whatever. And we have Steve Kerr tomorrow as we do this on Thursday. Steve Kerr, we just put out a little clip, his very funny story about a play. I don't know. Can you swear on this channel?
No, don't swear. Okay. Don't swear.
Well, did you watch the clip?
Yes, I watched the clip.
And I won't repeat what Steve Kerr said. But no, it's been amazing. We had Aubrey Plaza. Basically, I went through my list of famous friends and hey, would you be on my podcast that's just starting? And most of them said yes, or, found the time. And it's been a real variance. We've had sports people. We've had people in film. We've had comedians. We've had politicians. Sarah Kendzior, one of my favorites, she has her own podcast called Gaslit Nation that I'm a fan of, and it's been fun to do. We're still, trying to gain audience like everybody else is, because a lot of people don't even know it exists.
Well,
right?
There's a zillion. The other problem is there's a zillion podcasts out there today.
That's a fact. There's a zillion of everything, right? There's a zillion streaming TV channels and radio channels and magazines and newspapers and everybody. It's funny. I was just telling a story the other day. Just imagine if you were like an older person that, had been an executive at CBS back in the 50s or 60s. You're like, we used to get 35% of America every week, right? And nothing like that anymore. Everybody's just going for these tiny little margins. And if you can own this tiny little space, think about all the specialty conference networks.
Yeah.
Right? There's a SEC and a Big Ten and a Pac-12 and on and on and on. And they're just going for whatever share they can get in those. And then there's the bigger ones, the networks we all know of. But I did it for fun, kind of experimental, and I'm happy the way it's turned out. Hopefully we keep going and gain a little more audience.
It was funny. I talked to one of your old. I don't know if you and him crossed paths. Did you cross paths with Craig Kilborn?
Yeah, we didn't do that many shows together, but he was there. In fact, I remember distinctly him coming, not that we were that type, but, we got along well. He was kind of probably asking this question of several people he might have trusted when he made his big move, right? He went and did the first Daily Show.
Yes.
And he'd only been at ESPN a couple of years, or 3 years, whatever it was. He wasn't there that long. But, obviously very talented and funny and went out and did a bunch of other things.
Well, I had him on the show maybe 2 weeks ago. And I was talking to him about, all right, what do you want to do next? Now that, he's taken a bunch of years off after doing the Late Show on CBS and all that stuff. And he was just like, nothing. And he's doing a podcast. I forget what the hell it's called, but another one with a weird name. And I'm just like, that's it? That's all you want to do? I think of creative types and I'm like, man, you don't want to do anything? He's like, no, I'm good. I just want to do the podcast. Like, you just wake up every day and that's it? You just want to do the podcast and nothing else?
Maybe he's content. Who knows? I'm sure he'll have something else up his sleeve. I, on the other hand, am always efforting. I just have zero pride. Like I'll pitch anybody anything. I get to know, all right, you're out. I'm moving to the next guy. First thing I tried to do after I left ESPN is pitch Michael Jordan a commercial idea. And it was fun.
Really?
Actually be kind of, I mean, who knows if they took me serious or not, but they were respectful. I talked to his number one and we went back and forth and I explained why and how it would work. And ultimately they said no, but it was kind of fun. Like for 4 or 5 days, I thought I had a prayer with Michael Jordan. I was lucky though. I had a few things that, like you mentioned the Olympics earlier, and I had a commercial for EA and a commercial for Olipop. And there was something else I'm forgetting. We shot these miniature golf videos just for the heck
I
of it.
remember seeing these. Yes.
There was no purpose other than let's go to a miniature golf course and I'll commentate as 4-year-olds play. And I ended up monetizing it by talking Olipop into sponsoring the next segments. So there's always a way. And then meantime, I was debating what was I going to do that was a little more solid, what was going to pay the food and rent. And Caesars is the one that won out. They just kind of made the most sense. Vegas, I'd gone to school there. It was the first place I visited. I used to usher at Caesars Palace fights. I ushered Ollie Holmes, Leonard Hearns, there was something about going back home, so to speak, my college home. And I've had a great time doing commercials with JB Smoove and the Mannings and Halle Berry and Trey Wingo. And then I get to do all my little videos. They send me different places and essentially kind of do what I was doing, like on the main event, the football stories I used to do for NFL Countdown. But even less concerned with facts and figures. Just go out, have fun, make fun little sketches, and move on to the next one.
Yeah, it's almost like you're a brand ambassador in that regard for them, and I think it's perfect and right up your alley. What's it been like doing the commercials with JB and those guys and the Mannings? Give me something anecdotally.
It was, well, the first one we did, Trey and I were in it. They told me to address Archie. That was my one line, was I get to ask Archie one question. I was a very small role, the stars of the Mannings, right? And JB, obviously. And Halle Berry was in that one. And so Archie was to my immediate right, but we had JB and then Halle Berry to his right, to my left. So I just ad-libbed something to the first one, something the second. Then I turn and do my real line. Of course, they cut out the stuff I wanted to be in, and they just went with the as scripted, as they call it. Then this year, the big campaign that came out for football, I was not in. So we did some bits where I was mad that I wasn't in and tried to interrupt the commercial. Like, hey, what if I just sit right here? What if I called myself Kenny Mayne? Would that work out? So unfortunately, I wasn't in the big shoot this year, but I was still doing all these supplemental things as I was describing.
Can you imagine, and we're talking with Kenny Mayne, host of the Hey Mayne podcast here on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Can you imagine thinking back, where we were at a time when the only place you can gamble on sports was basically Vegas, to now being at a point where there's 30 states that you can go and wager on sports in? Like how accessible it is?
How about stadiums themselves? Like I was at the Washington Capitals opener, right? And they have a restaurant, right? Guy Fieri's restaurant. And it's literally, you open a door and you're in the stadium. It's one door away. And so people go and they eat their wings and have a beer or whatever. And you walk up to the window right there. I'm betting on the Capitals, giving the goal and a half or whatever you're betting, right? And then you walk in and you watch the game. And then you walk out and cash, hopefully. So I agree with you that it's changed markedly. I think just incrementally, it just kept getting looser. Van Pelt show certainly had an impact, right? Because they talked about gambling all the time, and others on the radio. I think once everybody realized there was a lot of money to be had, everybody dropped their moral issues, right? Because remember when Tony Romo wanted to he was going to get paid an appearance fee to be like a
fantasy football convention
camp or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. In Vegas, and oh no, you cannot do that. That is heresy. How can you talk about gambling? The thing is, everybody's been playing fantasy football for 20 odd years, and that's administered by most of the biggest companies, the CBS.com or ESPN.com, right? That's where you run your league. So you could argue they were already running huge gambling operations, unless you just want to say it was for fun.
Kenny, I'll tell you where the future is, though, and you probably know this already. You don't need me to tell you. It's live betting. It's the ability in game to last night. I'll give you a perfect example. Last night, I do a live betting thing on the show every night, at least once an hour, And last night, the Clippers were down 18 late third quarter in Portland against the Blazers. They're plus 1,500 at that point. And I'm sitting there screaming at everybody on the radio, run and make this bet. If you put $10 on it and they come from behind, which happens all the time in the NBA, you just won $150. Why wouldn't you do it? The value in betting. The value bet's in betting or is in live betting?
NBA has to be the very best bet for that type of play, right? Your team's down by 10 or 20 or whatever it is. They make runs all the time. Soccer, less so. You're not going to get that kind of run. But I was trying to explain, Eldridge Rakasner played at the University of Washington, played in the NBA from New Orleans. He's a good friend out in Seattle. And he's just put on Twitter one of those anti-soccer remarks like, guys, I just don't get it. I don't get soccer. Somebody help me explain it to me. And I said, you know how you revere somebody like Jamal Crawford with his ability to handle a basketball? Well, now just transfer, that appreciation for these people who had a soccer ball with their feet. They're doing what you think is great in basketball. They're doing it with their feet. It's just a different skill, right? A different skill set. And so what if the scores are low? If they counted football points in a different way, only gave them a half a point for a touchdown. I mean, It's just all, I just think people get all caught up in it. Yeah, it was low scoring, so it's not good. It's not, no, that means that every touch, every drive is so crucial. I've totally enjoyed it. I'm not even the biggest soccer guy in the world, but how can you not be excited about World Cup, and especially with the American team still around?
The last 15 minutes of that game against Iran. Oh my God. There wasn't a single goal scored, but I was at the edge of my seat.
Oh, Gretchen and I, we were like just yelling on our couch. Just,
she
has a soccer background.
Yeah.
And, when the ball just barely got by our goalie Turner, great play from the defender coming from behind. I mean, that rarely happens, right? Somebody behind the goalie to make the sweep and play. So I'm excited for it. I'm going to get up on Saturday, and I think it's at 10 a.m. Eastern. I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, before I let you go, tell people about runfreely.org.
I'm glad you mentioned it. I just got off the phone today with the guy that makes the devices, and we just selected another veteran to get one. So I ruined my ankle playing football at UNLV, October 1980, last play of a game at Oregon. So we were getting beat. I'm in there at the end, literally the last play. I threw some garbage pass in the rain, slipped out of it. It was a terrible throw. And a guy sticks his helmet on my ankle to end the game. So I'm lying. Everybody else is shaking hands, picking up cheerleaders, doing whatever they're doing normally. And I'm literally I can't move because feels like my foot is underground. So I had what was called a fracture dislocation. Not fun. And it's as bad as it sounds. It feels like your foot has been torn off your leg. So they flew me back, though. I think the defensive line coach gave me a scotch and water on the plane, so this will take care of it. I got my surgery the next day. Then strangely, I came back and played the next year. Ill-advised by some people, but I was healthy enough to do it. When you're young, you bounce back. But decades later, as I got older, it got worse and worse and worse. All these surgeries later, right? But I found this amazing device. It's called an ExoSim. I'm not selling it. I'm giving it away because people get confused. They think I own the company or something. I got mine. It totally changed my life. I cried for 2 hours. Couldn't believe this gift, that I've been given. So Gretchen and I started a foundation right away. It took a few months to go through all the paperwork and all the legalities, but it's called Run Freely, RUNFREELY, runfreely.org.
Okay.
We got the whole stories right there for you. You can donate, help a veteran who needs one of these like I needed it for my football injury.
Kenny Mayne, I wish I had more time. This was amazing. I'm glad we got to do it, and hopefully we'll get to do it again soon. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
Awesome stuff. Kenny Mayne joining us on the show. We'll come back and wrap up the hour next. All right, Kenny. I appreciate
that was really fun.
Dude.
Let's do it again.
Yeah, really. I did enjoy it. And like I said,
okay. Yeah, we'll talk on the other issue.
Yeah. How cool is that? Getting to talk with Kenny Mayne. It was awesome. Well, we could hear that too. We could play more than one rejoin. I'm good with that, Greg. Greg is working on the show tonight, producing and engineering. It's my first time working with him. No, don't. It's quite all right. I'm splitting producers. I get two producers on the show tonight. They don't know what to do with me. Oh, shoot. The Lakers and Blazers is blacked out. This is the worst thing about living on the West Coast. Like, I live 2 hours outside of L.A., and I can't get the Lakers and Blazers. I'm blacked out. It's just the worst. Ugh. It's just the worst. At any rate, we got another hour. Actually, we got two of them. Thanks to Kenny Mayne for stopping by. We'll talk with Ross Tucker in the next hour of the show. Stick around. We got more to do. Glad to have you with us. The Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Stay tuned. Yep. It's okay. No worries. Don't worry about it. I was like, wait a second. Did I just hear it? What'd you say? Go ahead. Go. You there, by the way? So who should I talk to about the podcast? Michael? All right. Okay, no worries. Because I definitely want to take the Kenny Mayne segments and put that in the podcast. So if you could just, even if you just write it down or just make a note for him or something. Yeah. What shows do you normally do? You do 1 to 4? Oh, shit. Hour number 2 of the show on a Wednesday. So Greg is producing and engineering the show tonight. I'm not calling him out, but he actually made a point in the early part of last hour when I was getting into the fact that Denver doesn't have anything to get all that excited about, and he came on after the segment and he said to me, "Well, I mean, the Avalanche just won the Stanley Cup. First of all, Denver is a football city first and foremost." But secondly, that was last year. I mean, this year, the Rockies aren't ever going to be very good. Even though, as much as I root for them because I was the bat boy for their Double-A team in 1994. True story. And it's another year in hockey. And I mean, the football thing is such a disaster. You know, I mean, it's such a bad situation for the Broncos with Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett and supposedly players not liking Russell Wilson, that you just have to wonder. I mean, my God. I mean, they could be in the football wilderness forever. What do you do with Russell Wilson at 34, who you owe $250 million to? I mean, it's just such an awful situation. But the Avalanche are good, so I give Greg credit. He is right about that. But I'm not a big hockey fan either. For anybody who listens to the show, you know that. I bring on Dennis Bernstein from the fourth period whenever I talk about hockey stuff, and boom. We get the hockey fix in. We're good. No comments from Greg. He got all quiet over there. You're more than welcome to defend. There's nothing to defend. You're right. You're right. The Avalanche are good. Where in the Northeast? Okay. Ugh. Yeah, I can't stand any of those two. I grew up in Connecticut, and I grew up right on the Mason-Dixon of sports fandom. So I grew up literally on the Mason-Dixon line, New Haven, and I was just east of New Haven. Anything east of I-91 corridor is Boston fans. Everything west is Yankees, Mets, Jets, Giants, all that. I grew up a Yankee fan, Giants fan, Knicks fan, and the Whalers. But after they left Hartford, my love for the NHL died. Exactly. We're back with more of the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. That's exactly why I'm not a hockey guy. After Hartford, after Gary Bettman, not only after they left, but after Gary Bettman basically said, unless they get a brand new arena, like they did everything to make the XL Center a pretty nice arena now, and they still won't even entertain the idea of putting a team back in Hartford. Yet Winnipeg got a team back. Like, give me a effing break, Winnipeg. Oh, it's the greatest. Oh, New Haven? It is the mecca of pizza. And Connecticut's actually one of the college hockey capitals of the world now. UConn is now a top 10 program, and Quinnipiac is ranked, I think, second in the nation right now. Yale's usually good, but this year they've been craptastic. No, that is in Massachusetts or New Hampshire? It's a great hockey state, though. That's how I got my start in broadcasting. High school hockey team. I was the play-by-play guy when I was 17 years old. Oh, yeah. Yeah. He was there a long time, yeah. And he hated me. I did afternoon. Oh, God, yeah. When I was doing afternoon drive in Hartford, it was he was starting to get a little long in the tooth. And, yeah, we had some exchanges in press conferences that, yeah. If it were today, they would have been viral moments. Get some facts. I was there. Yeah, absolutely. He said it to Ken Krajewski. Get some facts. Oh, yeah. Would you give back any money? Not 1 cent. Not 1 cent. Nope. Yeah, he was a character. I'm friends with. No, I did not go. I started in broadcasting when I was in high school and never looked back. I lived my dream. Worked for ESPN Radio in Hartford. That was not my dream, but I got to do radio in New York City for ESPN Radio New York. I did it in San Francisco. I was on Sirius XM, nationally syndicated with NBC Sports. Everything else now, I'm 45, and whatever happens the rest of the way is gravy. I've had so much fun. I was off the air for 6 years. When NBC let me go at the end of my contract in 2016, that was it. I was done. I wasn't planning to do this anymore. Then I launched my own media company about a year ago. And this is the first show that our company launched, but there's more coming. Yep. We roll along on this Wednesday edition of the show. Good to have you with us. Hello to our friends. I think we're on there right now. Let me check. Are we on in Dallas right now? Yeah, I think we are. Hello to our friends listening on 97.1 The Freak in Dallas, one of our bigger affiliates. Glad to be talking to you guys tonight. Mavericks aren't playing, so you got me. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. I'm sorry you missed the first hour because we had Kenny Mayne on for about 30 minutes, just talking about a whole assortment of things. See, I can't imagine what it's like to just wake up and not want to do anything. Like I said, we had this conversation with Craig Kilborn a couple of weeks ago. He used to be on SportsCenter and The Daily Show and Late Show on CBS. And guys just... I can't imagine ever being at a point in my life. And who knows, maybe in 10 or 15 years, I'm 45. Maybe in 10 or 15 years, I'm going to wake up in the morning and just be like, hey, you know what? I don't really feel like doing anything. I mean, even when I wasn't on the air for the last 6 years, I had a creative itch every day that I still had to fill. And I did podcasting and, Twitch broadcasts and tried a whole bunch of different things. I was always still doing something in media. I just wasn't hosting a talk show every day. And I can't imagine what it's like to go from hosting, SportsCenter 5 or 6 days a week or The Daily Show or any type of show and then just cold turkey being like, hey, you know what? I'm good. I don't feel like I've scratched the itch. I don't need to do anything else anymore. I can't. I just can't. Like, I am convinced I'll be doing this until they put me in the ground or until they cremate me. I haven't decided which I want yet. I know. Morbid thought for happy-go-lucky sports talk show. But I don't know. I don't know. I can't imagine waking up one day and being like, I have no desire to do anything. Nothing. I just want to sit in my lazy chair. I can't. Yeah, Keith Jackson used to have a saying. Whoa, Nelly. That Keith Jackson on ABC. He said, I don't want to die behind a microphone, which was why he retired when he did. And some guys do want to die behind a microphone. I've worked with people in the industry over the years in the various places I've been that are guys that they'll be doing it until they put them in the ground because they don't have any other joys in life. I have other joys in life. I have other things I like to do, but I can't imagine not having this creative itch that has to be scratched every day. I just can't do it. I don't know. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You can hit me up on Twitter at The Back Page. I wonder how our poll question is doing. Let me check in on the poll question. So last night, we asked the question, wow, Zion Williamson, 33, 10, and 5 tonight. Last night, I asked the question on the show, what would you what would you think if I gave you an over-under? Greg, I'll let you play in this too. Last night on the show, I said we had about 14 or 15 million people for the game against England, the World Cup game. I don't know what the ratings were against Iran. USA TV ratings. Let's see how many people watched. 12 million viewers. So the game against Iran at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. I mean, this is crazy. 11 a.m. Tuesday morning. Did not 11 a.m. I'm sorry, 2 p.m. Eastern, so 11 a.m. my time on the West Coast. But 2 p.m. in the afternoon, a work day, on a Tuesday, did 12 million viewers on Fox. 14 million for the game against England on Saturday or Sunday, whatever day it was this weekend while I was up in San Francisco. Friday? Okay. It was Friday. I was up in San Francisco. It's the only game of the World Cup I haven't watched. So I set the over-under at 19 million for the game against the Netherlands on Saturday morning. Will it go over or will it go under? What do you think? It's knockout stage. It's a weekend, 9 a.m. Eastern. It's the knockout stage. It's win or go home. You don't think 19 million people? No? 14 or 15. Yeah. But this is knockout stage. And now this team has captivated the hearts and minds of America with the way they won and Christian Pulisic going into the net and putting his body on the line. No? No? No, I think it's over. I definitely think it's over. I think that's a good number considering 14, then 12, but now we're in the knockout stage. Final 16, it's win or go home. I mean, they're 5 wins away from winning the World Cup. Yeah, why not? Saturday? Yeah. You're pretty clear you think it's an under. Yeah. On our Twitter poll, on my Twitter feed at the back page, 63.6% say over 19 million, 36.4% say under 19 million. There's still 10 minutes left in the poll on Twitter at the back page if you want to go and weigh in. Well, I think it goes over. I think there's going to be a lot of people watching. Yeah, here's the reality, and I said this last night on the show. They're undefeated. They might only have one win, but there ain't nobody who could beat them so far, and they've only given up one goal in 3 matches, which is pretty remarkable. And it was on a penalty kick, a questionable penalty at that. So, I mean, it's pretty impressive. And I just love how athletic USA Soccer is. It's just the guys are so athletic. And I'm not soccer guy. I don't pretend to be, and I've said this on the show. I don't pretend to be soccer guy. I'm curious. Are you gonna? I asked this question yesterday on the show if people were going to get up to watch, and I know we had a couple of callers call in last night and say they were going to get in. They were going to get up and watch it. In the Central Time Zone, it's what 8 a.m. in the morning, something like that. You're going to get up and watch it though, right? Yeah, but it's your job too, so that's part of it. It's really easy, but soccer, what I said last night on the show and what I think makes soccer so unique is that it is really simple. You can drop in from another planet, kick the ball in the other net. The only rule that can somewhat throw you off in soccer is the offsides rule. Outside of that, it's pretty cut and dry. Like, you could be dropped in from another planet and be like, oh, the goal's to kick it in the other net. Okay. I mean, it's not difficult to figure out. Whereas hockey, there's offsides, there's icing, there's, all these different things, high sticking, the penalties and what have you. Baseball, I think it's kind of easy. I think baseball is. Yeah, I think it is, but it moves so fast. Basketball can move so fast. And unless you go to an NBA game live, you really don't even appreciate just how fast it is. How quickly these guys get up and down the floor is just, it's mind-boggling. And they're getting up and down the floor a lot quicker this year because nobody's playing defense. Got 130. Yeah, the Knicks scored 140 last night in Detroit. A Mike Thibodeau team scored 140 points last night. I mean, that's all you need to know about what's going on in the NBA right now. Nobody's playing defense for the first 42 minutes of these NBA games. And then in the last 6 minutes, they start to bear down a little bit. But for the first 42 minutes every game, it's like the All-Star game. Guys just running up and down the floor, nobody's playing defense. And the difference with the teams right now that are succeeding in the NBA this season is the teams that are playing defense for more than 6 minutes a game. That's the difference you're getting in the league right now. It's the guys and the teams that are actually playing defense for more than 6 minutes a game. 1-800-224-2004 is the telephone number. 800-224-2004. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter at The Back Page. Again, on Twitter at The Back Page. Did you see Jerry Stackhouse have to get dragged off the court? He's coaching Vanderbilt. He had to get dragged off the court by security tonight. And yet Juwan Howard last year losing his mind, coaching Michigan. Don't these guys realize they're not playing anymore? Like, somebody's got to remind these guys, you're now the leader of young men. You're an example to these young men. I watched Jerry Stackhouse get dragged off the court. I don't know how Juwan Howard should have been tossed out of that school the second that happened last year. That should have been it. It should have been, all right, there is no second chance. You're the guy leading these young men, setting an example. Same thing with Jerry Stackhouse. I don't get it. Coaches have to remember they are the leader of men. Apparently it doesn't matter much. Later in this hour, we'll be joined by my man Ross Tucker, who I love talking to about the NFL. He's very difficult to get because he does a million things. I'm happy to get him on the show. He'll talk to us about the NFL. He's the host of the Ross Tucker NFL podcast. I'll go through a whole litany of items with him coming up about 18 minutes from now. We also have Paige's Picks, not my picks per se. We do Paige's Picks every week on the show on Friday, but we like to do an early look in on the lines. We do that every Wednesday on the show. We got that coming up next hour, including the Thursday night game, which we'll obviously talk about as well. A curious move, I know, we're not on in Toronto, but a curious move by the Blue Jays that I got to talk about for a minute. Coming up on the other side. A couple other items to get to as well. 1-800-224-2004. I'm Jason Page. This is the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. What happened? You hit a button and nothing happened? So many issues with that. It's not just you. It's when other people have been running the board on this show, they've had weird issues like that. Do you need me to come back on? Get a new computer. All right. So apparently we're having a technical issue. So I'm just going to sit here and fill while we get it figured out. Devin Booker tonight, by the way, just crossed my Twitter feed. 51 points. Jason Tatum went for 49 tonight. Booker went for 51. The scoring averages in the league this year are just going to be insane. It's going to be like a video game. It's absolutely going to be like your video game when you look at like the scoring leaders on NBA 2K or whatever it's called. It's just 20. Devin Booker tonight was, get this, 51 points, 6 assists, 6 of 7 from 3. How about this? Only 6 of 7 from 3 in a 51-point performance from Devin Booker. You ready for this? 20 of 25 shooting. We're not talking about like Shaq or Wilt Chamberlain in the middle or, Patrick Ewing in his heyday or David Robinson. This is crazy. Well, it's the end of that segment. That's funny. Guess we won't be putting that one in the podcast. No, I'm just kidding. We don't put the whole show in. I only put in a few segments because I talk about too many things that are actually happening at the time. So I refuse to put a 3-hour podcast on that has no relevance. I won't do it. I'm not coming back on again just to get cut off. What system do they use there? See, I never worked with Audio Vault. I always worked with Next Gen. Just be glad it's not happening on your show. It's not your fault. You have nothing to apologize for. You didn't do it. Oh, boy. That's great. Oh, yeah, no, I've seen. I've heard all about it. Trust me, some of it's happened during my show. So between Fox and Telemundo, this might change your opinion on Saturday. Between Fox and Telemundo, $15.5 million for U.S. Iran. So it's a different time. See, now U.S. England across all platforms did $20 million. But Fox, it did $15.49 million. Yeah, it's just the Fox number. So it did $15.49 million for U.S. England. I think it's going to do over 19. I really do. I think people are going to get up. I think there's some real energy around this team. And it's not up against any college football. Other than Saturday morning cartoons, Hopefully. Yep. The cash-in continues on this Wednesday. 28 minutes past the hour. I think we got the gremlins out of the system. How about Devin Booker? I was talking about him just before I got cut off in the last segment of my own show. 51 points for Booker. And it's funny. Him and Jason Tatum, very similar players. Very similar players. Sort of modeled after Kobe. Those kind of guys. And Tatum was really good tonight. There were some people questioning why the Celtics didn't give it to him with under 15 seconds left to go and get to 50 when he was at 49, when the game was out of hand. And I'm like, really? Go run it up on a team just so a guy can get from 49 to 50 or 51? It's crazy. But Devin Booker, 51 tonight in a win. Yeah. If you had him at over 27.5, I think that one was a wrap pretty early. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. And again, hit me up on Twitter at The Back Page. Ross Tucker coming up about 10 minutes from now. We'll get some thoughts with him on the NFL. I got to question this move because if I am the manager of the Toronto Blue Jays, John Schneider, there's no way I could be happy at this move by the Blue Jays, hiring Don Mattingly as the bench coach. I mean, you think about it for a second. You just got the team, the Blue Jays were a good team last year. They've got a good young roster. They've added some arms, and the Blue Jays are an organization that basically everybody in that AL East, Boston's a little bit of a transition stage, but everybody in that AL East has amazing young talent. I mean, that division is going to be so much fun for years. I actually feel bad for the Orioles because they've got some amazing young talent, and they might win 85 games every year just because they have to. And I know the schedule is going back to an unbalanced or a balanced schedule, I should say, where everybody's playing everybody, the same number of times or less times if you're, they're not playing 18 times a year or whatever against their opponents in the American League East this year. And maybe that's a good thing for the Orioles because they're a really talented team. But back to the point I was going to make, the Blue Jays go and hire Don Mattingly as their bench coach. So, I mean, if you're John Schneider and you get off to a slow start, which is, I mean, look, it happens in baseball. Guys get hurt. Go ask Joe Girardi in Philadelphia with the Phillies. Did anybody have on their bingo card at the start of baseball season Joe Girardi getting fired a month in? No way. And Mattingly is going to take over the role of bench coach to John Schneider. And I'm sure Schneider's going to say all the right things and try and make it sound like it's all fine and good. But I can't imagine he's very happy with the idea that Mattingly's going to be looking over his shoulder and is basically manager in waiting if they get off to a slow start. If they get out to a 11-19 start, and one of those AL East teams gets off to a big lead, and you're looking at your Toronto and you're 9 games back after the first month and a half of the season, John Schneider's going to get fired and Don Mattingly's going to be installed as the team's new manager. Mattingly said other teams approached him, but the Jays were the best fit. Says he's there to support John Schneider in whatever capacity that looks like, including helping him walk out the door. I added the last part. I wished that the Yankees had gone and gotten Mattingly in the offseason. And it's not that I'm an anti Aaron Boone guy. It's nothing to do with that. I just think that the fan base's reaction towards Aaron Boone at this point, it's such a visceral reaction. It's such a toxic relationship, not because of him, but because of the fans. And whether you like to admit it or not, sometimes fans do drive the bus on these things. If you've got a fan base that says, we're just not going to show up at games, or they're constantly chanting fire Aaron Boone from every corner of Yankee Stadium, ownership hears that. Brian Cashman, who's probably worried about his own job, even though they're figuring out a contract situation for him, there's got to be something to the idea that ownership hears those things. And for all the winning Aaron Boone has done, and he has done it at a prolific level, he hasn't won a World Series, and that's all the Yankees judge you on. And here's Don Mattingly available after deciding to walk away from the Marlins situation. It was a mutual parting of the ways. Don Mattingly's right there for you. Didn't have to be ugly. You could let Aaron Boone go. Don't worry, Aaron Boone's going to land on his feet with all the games he's won in New York. Somebody else is going to give him a job. And instead, you're stuck with Aaron Boone for another year. Maybe with Aaron Judge. Maybe not. I'll have to wait and see. I still say push comes to shove, Aaron Judge will be a Yankee. The new reporting is that the Yankees have offered 8 years, $300 million. I have said from the get-go, and look, I hate to say this. I can't speak for other shows on the network. I can only speak for myself. We are always ahead of the curve on these stories. I tell you stuff weeks in advance before you hear it on other shows. I was saying forever and a day ago, Aaron Judge, the only way it gets done is if it gets to $40 million a year on average. This current deal he's being offered, I think, is like $37.3 million a year. He's going to get $40 million a year from somebody. Might be the Yankees. Supposedly the Yankees are willing to go up beyond the 8 years, $300 million they're currently offering, according to, I believe it was Jeff Passan who said it. If I'm wrong, I apologize to Jeff, but I'm pretty sure it was his reporting. But it's gonna take $40 million a year. I've always said 8 years, $320 is what it's going to wind up with. We'll see if I'm right. And somebody's going to go to that number. Somebody's going to go to that number. I was talking to somebody today who said, if I'm the Colorado Rockies, who was I talking to about this today? I had an interesting conversation with somebody. My brains are mashed potatoes by this point in the day. Oh, I was talking to a friend in Canada who's a big sports betting guy. He goes, if I was the Colorado Rockies, I'd go and offer him like $45-50 million a year to go hit a zillion home runs at Coors Field. It's an interesting thought. Now, if you're the Rockies, certainly put fans in the seats. Not that they have a tough time drawing; they get decent attendance there. But it's an interesting thought if you're the Rockies. Go and throw a ton of money at Aaron Judge. Somebody's going to give him $40 million a year. If it's not the Yankees, it'll be somebody else. I do think when push comes to shove, though, it will be the Yankees. 1-800-224-2004 is the telephone number, 800-224-2004. Let's talk some NFL with my guy, Ross Tucker. Westwood One does a great job on the NFL, the host of the Ross Tucker NFL podcast. It's next on The Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Thanks, Greg. I appreciate your help. Have a great night. No worries, man. Not your fault. See ya. Michael Motorcycle. Michael Motorcycle. Hi. How are you? No complaints. Air in my lungs, air in my tires. I can't ask for anything more. We continue on this Wednesday right, so the interview coming up, I've got it completely self-contained on my side. Peek ahead at the time for anything else in your life?
Football. I go real
We continue on this Wednesday edition of the show. Still to come later in the program, we'll do our early peek ahead at the lines for this week in the NFL, including the Thursday night game. And speaking of the NFL, let's talk about it now with Ross Tucker. He's the host of the Ross Tucker podcast. You can also hear him on Westwood One, their NFL broadcast. He does college football broadcasts as well. Did I miss anything? Is there anything else you're not doing?
You know what? The Even Money Betting podcast is killing it. So if you're talking betting lines a little bit later in the show, make sure you mention Even Money Betting podcast. And the greatest gift anybody can get someone for the holidays, a story from myfrontpagestory.com. Trust me. So you gave me an opening, Jay. I had to take it.
Oh my God, is there anything? Do you have time for anything else in your life?
You know, football season is very, very busy, but I don't really know it any other way. I go real hard for 6 months, and then, starting with the Eagles preseason games.
Yeah.
And then in the off season, it's a lot less. I have a few small businesses like the podcast business and myfrontpagestory.com that I work on, but honestly, I'm pretty busy in the off season. Well, the biggest difference is just weekends.
Yeah.
So like weekends in the fall, I'm gone every weekend. So what I tell people is I absolutely love my job, but like anything else, there are pros and cons, and the cons, especially with having two little girls, is the travel every weekend is tough. But probably the most fun thing I do is going to the games and calling the games. So, there's really no other way around it, right? If you want to call games, you're going to miss some family time.
I'm actually having lunch with your boss this weekend, Howie Deneroff, here in Palm Springs. He's actually coming out here this weekend, and him and his wife Jana and I are getting together with my husband, and the four of us are actually going out to lunch on Sunday. So I'll have to let him know I was talking to you.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Yeah, for sure. Please do.
Yeah, I love Howie. He's one of the stalwarts of our industry. By the way, you were doing UConn games this year, weren't you?
I only did one. I only did UConn Army.
I heard you on that game.
Yeah. Yeah, I did 4 or 5 last year, and then it just worked out differently with my CBS schedule this year. It's kind of complicated, but I only ended up doing the Army game, unfortunately.
I'll tell you what, and they weren't very good in that game, but Jim Moore has done an amazing job turning that program around, which looked like it was just basically ready to go on the shelf forever. And Moore did a hell of a job getting that team to 6-6 this year.
He really did. It's very, very impressive. Those kids were so beaten down a year ago. I did their game against Holy Cross when they lost, and that was not a fluke. I did their game against Yale when they barely won.
Yes.
To see them the very next year beat Boston College, Fresno State, and Liberty is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like I can hardly believe it, and I feel good about them next year. They got a lot of good young players.
Yeah, Moore has done a hell of a job. I was talking to Lisa Horn, who covers college football, and she was saying she was going to put him near the top of her Coach of the Year ballot, that she thought he deserved that kind of consideration for what he did in year one with this program. Let me get some thoughts with you on Odell Beckham Jr. Where do you think he should land versus where you think he will land?
I think it's probably the same for both. I think it's probably the Cowboys for both. I think he should go there. I think it feels to me like they could really use one more perimeter threat. Now, I do think Gallup looks better coming back from injury, but I think one more weapon, especially in case they would suffer an injury to CeeDee Lamb or Gallup, could really help the Cowboys. When you look at them compared to some of these other teams, it feels like, maybe they're just one extra weapon on the outside short. And so I feel like that is where he'll go. They've made such a public proclamation about it. Although, money is still a factor here, Jay, right? Like they've said all this stuff publicly. I feel like that's because they're trying to get him on the cheap, right? So they're trying to convince him about wearing the star on your helmet and being a Cowboy and all those things, as opposed to actually paying him what he wants. But I do think they're the team that probably needs him the most and probably the place he'll end up.
Talking with Ross Tucker, host of the Ross Tucker podcast. Also, you can hear him on Westwood One NFL broadcast, does college football as well. Give me some thoughts on this situation this year. And I want to take two teams, and bear with me here for a second. I was talking about this on the show last night. You got two organizations, one being the Cowboys, one being the Packers. Dak Prescott breaks his thumb in week 1 of the season. They had to do surgery. They shut him down. They really took their time, though, bringing him back, and they trusted Cooper Rush. Then you have the Packers. Rodgers hurts his thumb week 3 against the Giants. If the team had gone, and I know this is a little bit of second guessing and rearview mirror, because we didn't even know how bad the thumb was until recently. If the team had gone to Jordan Love then and just gotten the surgery and put him on the bench for 4 weeks, this team could be 6-6 right now in the hunt for a playoff spot. Why draft the kid? Why make it clear he is your next quarterback and then in this moment go with an injured Rodgers who's playing with 4 fingers?
Because they thought Rodgers could still play at a high level, and because I don't think they really think Jordan Love can. And I think they just paid Rodgers a ton of money to play in these games. And as long as he was able to play, they were going to have him play. It's weird because he had like the Lions game where he was awful, or the Titans game where he missed some throws. But then you have the Cowboys game where he had a bunch of amazing throws, or the Eagles game where he had a bunch of amazing throws. So I don't know that, I'm sure it's bothering him. I'm sure it doesn't help, but I just also wonder how much it's really affecting him or how much of a hindrance it's been.
Ross Tucker joining us here on the show tonight, getting some thoughts with him on the NFL, among some other things. Nathaniel Hackett's out there trying to, sort of put down the idea that there's tension between Russell Wilson, some of the guys on this team. You can't fire the guy making $250 million over the next several years. You can fire Nathaniel Hackett. Is there any other way this ends?
No, I don't think so. I think Nathaniel Hackett is as good as gone. They'll probably wait till the end of the year, but I would be shocked if he returns. The thing is, though, Jay, I don't know that that's going to fix the problem. What always made Russell Wilson so special was his ability to make second reaction plays. And I just feel like on some level, when you lose that ability, it doesn't really matter what offense you're in. Because you sit here and think, oh, well, when he gets a new coordinator in there and a new offense, well, that's not really his thing anyway. His thing is the second reaction plays, so it shouldn't really matter that much what offense you're in. If your whole thing is the second reaction plays, and Greg Cosell said on my show, the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, and he joins me every Thursday morning, so he'll be on tomorrow. He said that Russell Wilson appears to have lost the ability to make the second reaction plays. We're not seeing it. So I don't know how getting a new coach is going to fix that.
No, I don't either. And look, Seattle looks brilliant. I talk to Jem Mueller all the time, who does the games up there, works on the broadcasts in Seattle in the pre and post game. And from the very get-go of the season, she was saying, Seattle had this thing nailed. They knew what he was at this stage of his career. And it might be the greatest fleecing of all time, because Seattle's going to wind up, if this Denver Titanic continues, they're going to wind up with an amazing draft pick out of this deal.
You know what? It's going to be unbelievable. And that's kind of a theme, I feel like, this offseason. The Lions are going to get an unbelievable first-round pick from the Rams for the Stafford trade. The Eagles are looking like they're going to get a ridiculous pick from the Saints for the trade that ultimately netted the Saints Chris Olave. And exactly what you just referenced as well, with the Seahawks, that's why you make these trades sometimes, for the chance to get these kind of really, really high picks.
Yeah, it certainly is. A team that obviously has its own quarterback issues is the Jets with Zach Wilson. Mike White played well, but obviously you're talking about a situation where the Bears are not at full strength right now. Is Mike White the answer? And are the Jets a threat with this defense being as good as it is?
Well, Mike White is the answer depending on what the question is. If the question is, should Mike White be starting now? Yes. Is Mike White better than Zach Wilson? Yes. Is Mike White the long-term answer? I don't know that I'm ready to say that yet, but it was nice to see the New York Jets play football with a functioning quarterback. And I thought it was very telling when Robert Saleh said he made the easy look easy. Because what is he really saying, right? That Zach Wilson was making the easy look hard and wasn't able to do the easy. That's what he was telling us. It's clear as day by saying that. And he's right. Now, we'll see how Mike White fares moving forward. Remember, last year he had a good game, or maybe even two, and then it kind of fell off for him. Everyone's going to have a different plan for him now. Now that they've seen how the Jets use him, they'll have a different Mike White-specific plan, and we'll see if he can figure out the next play. It won't be the Bears' defense every week. Not that the Vikings' defense is great, but it won't be the Bears' defense. But I do think the Jets are kind of like a live wire now. On Wednesdays I do the Fantasy Feast podcast, my fantasy podcast, and Joe Dolan, he compared them, Jay, to the Case Keenum Minnesota Vikings in 2017. And I thought that was interesting, meaning they got a lot of talent around them, and if you just have the quarterback come in and do the easy, maybe they could be frisky. Maybe they could make some noise.
I right now, and I want to see if you agree with this. Everybody loves the Eagles, obviously. They've won, lost, and all of that's great. If you ask me which two teams I think are most likely to come out of the NFC, I keep coming back to San Francisco and I keep coming back to Dallas because of those defenses and the ability of those. Those are two Super Bowl caliber defenses to me. Whereas I think Philadelphia has a good defense, and I know they made some upgrades in the last couple of weeks here, in terms of the interior pass rush, but I still think that Dallas and San Francisco, and I know Dallas has a lot to prove in the postseason with Dak Prescott and his postseason record being what it is. But to me, Dallas and San Francisco, to me, still feel like the biggest threats to come out of the NFC. Tell me why I'm wrong. I know you do Philly games, so you would know.
Yeah, I think I don't know that you can say that the Eagles' defense has been as dominant as either the Cowboys or the Niners, but I think I want to say like they went on a streak of 7 or 8 games in a row where the defense allowed 17 points or less, which is pretty darn good. I mean, the Commanders, I think, ultimately broke that streak, but they had gone 7 or 8 in a row. And then even after that, they only allowed 17 to the Colts. So they have a good defense. The corners are really good. I would take their corners over the Cowboys' corners or the Niners' corners any day of the week. I think their D-line is good. I don't think they're quite certainly what Dallas has with Lawrence and Parsons off the edge or what the Niners have, but I do think it's pretty close. I understand where you're coming from, but I think that they're in that conversation, maybe just below those teams.
I got 30 seconds. Minnesota, contender or pretender? I still say pretender. They've played 3 tough teams. 2 of the games they got waxed.
Contender. Yeah, I think they're a contender. I think they are a good football team. They've beaten the Patriots. They beat the Bills. I think the Vikings are one of 4 teams, along with Cowboys, Niners, and Eagles, that I can see coming out of the NFC. I've totally given up on the Bucs.
Oh, I've given up on the Bucs too. Ross Tucker, he hosts the Ross Tucker Football Podcast here among Westwood One NFL broadcasts. My man, I appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy. I thank you for the time.
My pleasure, Jason. Thank you so much for having me. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, sir. We'll come back and wrap up the hour next. Actually, it's real easy. The 2 Kenny Mayne segments and the Ross Tucker is what I want to put in the podcast tonight. They were the last 2 long segments of the first hour. Okay. The interview you just heard. That's it. That's the podcast. Make it real easy. Yes. On the hard time, yes. 20-10. That's it. Continuing with this Wednesday edition of the show. Hey, have you headed over to playfortickets.com yet? What are you waiting for? A chance to go to the biggest game in the NFL awaits you. It's called the Super Pick 7 contest. You could find it right now at playfortickets.com. That's playfortickets.com. Click on the Super Pick 7 contest. Every Sunday of the NFL season, including the playoffs, you have a chance to win, and it couldn't be easier. All you have to do is pick the correct side and totals on Sunday for 7 games. It's that simple. You do that, you could be going to the big game in 2023 in Glendale, Arizona. You know the one. Plus $50,000 cash in your pocket. Airfare, hotel, it's all included. Right now, go to playfortickets.com and click on the Super Pick 7 contest. Make your picks today. 21 and over to play. Terms and conditions apply. That's how we wrap up hour number 2 of the show. Next hour, we are going to get Paige's early prognostications on the NFL lines for the upcoming week of games. Stick around for that and a whole bunch more as we continue the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Thank you, sir. What shows do you normally work on? Oh, nice. So you got a little extra long there night tonight. Yeah. We're getting to Aaron Rodgers coming up here in a couple of minutes. Lakers lead the Blazers 88-74. Coming off that awful loss against Indiana the other night. Ugh, so bad. Looks like they're going to win tonight, though. No worries. Do what you got to do. No worries, dude. Nah, I don't care if you do it at the end of the show. Don't rush, dude. If you got other stuff to do, don't worry about it. I know you're pulling extra duty, so. Rolling along on this Wednesday edition of the show, Hump Day. I'm just looking at this video again of Jerry Stackhouse getting thrown out of the Vanderbilt game tonight and having to be escorted off the court by security. Just going ballistic on a fish. I just don't get it. I don't know how Vanderbilt thinks that's a good look for their institution. It absolutely boggles the mind. You know, what is acceptable behavior these days and what some schools are willing to tolerate in the name of maybe being able to recruit a guy they may not otherwise be able to get. I can't. I don't get it. I really don't. Aaron Rodgers is back in the news. Yep. Says he would approach a conversation of change to Jordan Love, quote, with an open mind. You know, publicly he's tried to say all the right things, but I will say this until the cows come home. Aaron Rodgers is already retired. He's already checked out. And I know people will say, but watch him during the games. He's so competitive. I'm not talking about what's happening during the games. I'm talking about everything else. I'm talking about the stuff he's saying in the media. I'm talking about the things he says in his interviews with Pat McAfee. I'm talking about the fact that he didn't work out with these receivers during the offseason. He didn't attend mini camps, any of that stuff. That's what I'm talking about. He's off playing in the match, or he's off hosting Jeopardy. That's what I'm talking about. This guy doesn't want to play football anymore. He likes the paycheck. He's grabbing a couple of extra ones for this year, maybe next year, and then he's done. Frankly, he should retire after this year. Not because he can't play anymore, but because he doesn't want to play anymore. And you know what? The Packers screwed this up. I talked about it last hour with Ross Tucker, and I will continue to say it. They decided to go with Aaron Rodgers with 4 working fingers on his throwing hand rather than Jordan Love. They could have done the same damn thing that the Dallas Cowboys did. They could have put him on the bench for 3 or 4 weeks, have him get the surgery on his thumb. Maybe they go 2-2 instead of 0-4. They won 1 game immediately in the stretch between the injury at the end of the Giants game. They won 1 game. And now they get the Bears this week, and maybe they'll win, and that means we'll have to see Aaron Rodgers out there for another week scuffling along, trying to figure it out, when this team has no chance to make the playoffs, and they have a golden opportunity right now to find out a little bit of what Jordan Love is made of. Rodgers says he understands the, quote, Packers might want to see more of their 2020 first-round pick. Look, I'd love to finish the season out, Rodgers said, but I understand this is a business, and there's a lot of us kind of older guys who play a decent amount, and they might want to see some younger guys play. Hopefully we don't have to have that conversation. You're going to. But he continues, if that conversation comes up, I'll approach it with an open mind without any bitterness or resentment. Obviously, like I said, I want to win out, and then we don't have to have those conversations. Yeah. Like Kanish says in my favorite poker movie, Rounders. Yeah, and I'd like to date Christy Turlington. It's not going to happen. It's not happening. The season's over for the Packers. There might be 1, maybe 2 more wins on their schedule. You have a chance to find out what you have in Jordan Love, figure out if you need to go draft another quarterback, or whether Jordan Love's going to be the guy. But we all know this. I have said this a million times on this show, and I'll say it till it's blue in the face. There is no happy endings in the Aaron Rodgers story. No pun intended, Brett Favre. There are no happy endings in the way this story ends with Aaron Rodgers. There will be acrimony. It will be unceremonious, and it'll be ugly for a little while, and there will be hurt feelings, and then in 5 years, he'll come back and get his number retired the same way Brett Favre did. But that's the way the story ends. I could guarantee it, to quote Vince McMahon. So I've quoted Rounders and Vince McMahon in this segment. We're going places. So that's the story with Aaron Rodgers. We'll have to wait and see. Again, they get the Bears at a great time for Green Bay. I mean, here's the funny thing, too. They could win out and still not make the playoffs. I mean, think about it. In the NFC right now, Eagles, Vikings, Buccaneers, 49ers lead their divisions. Right now, all three teams in the NFC East after the Eagles would make the playoffs. So you're talking about a situation where the worst team in the NFC East, the Commanders, are 7-5. Green Bay is 4-8. I mean, the Cowboys, Giants, and Commanders basically control their own destiny right now. I mean, that's it. Everybody else has to hope they slip up. I mean, the Packers have to get by the Lions right now, who are ahead of them in the standings. The Packers have to get ahead of the Falcons, who are ahead of them in the standings. They got to get ahead of Seahawks in the standings. We're not even talking about the Commanders, Giants, and Cowboys. So this myth, this fairy tale, this dreamland that people are living in, that somehow this Packer team, you could sprinkle fairy dust on it, and they're going to be able to make a run to the postseason. You're dreaming. And there's no way a professional football operation, a professional football organization can operate in the land of dreams. They have to deal in reality. And the reality is this is the best time to get a look at Jordan Love. And too bad for Aaron Rodgers' hurt feelings. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. Eli Manning won 2 Super Bowls in New York with the Giants. Got news for you. His parting from that organization was not glamorous in any way. Wasn't exactly Jerome Bettis running off the field after winning a Super Bowl or John Elway running off the field after winning a Super Bowl. It just ain't happening. And it ain't going to be that way for Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry. This team is not built to win right now. And he hasn't played his best football. Whether some of that is the thumb or not, who knows? They've certainly put it in as a built-in excuse. So that's the Aaron Rodgers story. We'll wait and see how it continues to develop. College football, and boy, this is why you got to be careful what you say and how you handle yourself. And look, maybe Ohio State doesn't care. Maybe Ohio State doesn't care if they get left out of the 2022 Rose Bowl game. Maybe it's possible. Or the 2023 Rose Bowl game, I should say. But you had a bunch of players opt out of last year's Rose Bowl from Ohio State. So now the Rose Bowl is saying, well, we might not put Ohio State in the game. Now, if you disrespect the game, why should the Rose Bowl invite back Ohio State after the mockery they made of it last year? They might put Penn State in that game. 8th-ranked team in the country. Could be an alternate option. Even if the Buckeyes are available, the Rose Bowl may opt to go for Penn State. And you know what? I wouldn't blame them if they did. You know, if teams don't value playing in these big New Year's bowl games, then why put them there? If it doesn't mean something to them, why? Just because they have a better record? I mean, if Ohio State wants to dedicate themselves to being in that game and putting together their best roster and best team, then fine. They can play in the game. But they, on some level, you got to commit to that, and I don't know if those guys are going to do that. So it could wind up being Penn State. Interesting story to watch and see how it develops in the days ahead. But Garrett Wilson, Haskell Garrett, opted out to focus on the NFL draft last year. Chris Olave. And the folks at the Rose Bowl, they weren't happy. And Penn State, they get the tradition. I think they probably would want that trip more. It's interesting. Like I said, worth watching how it develops. 1-800-224-2004 is the telephone number. 800-224-2004. You could tweet at the show if you want at the back page. Again, on Twitter. Hit me up there at the back page. We'll come back. More to do in this hour of the show, including a look ahead at the lines for Week 13 in the NFL. We do it every week on the show. We go through all the games and give you some early opinions on the lines. By the way, I should say, Page's picks, we are now over the 500 mark, 25-23 on the year in the NFL. It took us a while. We were scrapping. We were trying to get there. But we are now 25-23 in Page's picks for the NFL on Fridays. Just saying. I don't know how other guys are doing. I don't go and look at the totals for other shows and other hosts and all these people that buy my picks. We're 25-23. We're back with more on the Cash In next. Tomorrow, we've got your Thursday night NFL fix. Looking forward to that. Love Thursday night. Love Thursday night NFL nights on this show because we go through all the live betting. We give you the post-game press conferences, anything you need. We just lean into it. Lakers lead the Blazers 108-94 late. Boy, Sacramento, man, can they score. Other than the Celtics, they're the best scoring team in the league right now. They've put up 130. Some of these scoring numbers in the NBA are just insane. Remember when the Knicks used to beat teams like 94-89, the Pat Riley day? I know. I'm doing the old, when I was younger. Sacramento tonight, 136-108 against the Pacers. And the Kings are about to advance to 11-9 on the season. Again, a whole bunch of points off their bench. So Lakers lead Portland 111-96. LeBron was back tonight, if I'm not mistaken. 27 minutes. Wow. LeBron, 28, 7, and 7. It's just amazing. Really, 11 of 15 shooting, 28 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. Just fantastic. And Anthony Davis had 19 and 10. Austin Reeves, go get yourself some. 22 tonight. Blazers are playing without Damian Lillard. They're just trying to sort of piece it together until he gets back. And somehow they're still 11 and 10, which is amazing unto itself. The Knicks lost again because they won their last game, which meant they had to lose tonight no matter who they were playing. Lost a close one at the Garden to Milwaukee, 109-93. The Bucks just continue to roll. Boston, the other team, the only team scoring more than Sacramento is Boston. And the Celtics hung 134 on Miami tonight. Jason Tatum, a point shy of 50. We mentioned the monumental effort of Devin Booker, who had 51 tonight in a Phoenix 132-113 win over Chicago. Utah won again. 125-112, beat the Clippers. Zion Williamson continuing to perform, play at a high level. 33-10 tonight for Zion to go along with 5 assists, 4 steals, and 2 blocks. Wow. On 12 of 15 shooting. There were some hella performances tonight in the NBA. I mean, some really good performances around the league. Look, some people don't like it. Some people don't like the lack of defense being played, and I get it. Drives me nuts that you could basically, watch a game for 42 minutes and they don't really start playing any defense until the final 6 minutes. It's a lot like the All-Star game. I said it before, and I'll say it again. Hey, but Brooklyn won tonight. Everything's well in Brooklyn. Nets are a game over 500 with the win tonight over the Wizards, 113-107. KD, Kevin Durant, another big performance. 35 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 13 of 20 shooting, and 11 of 11 from the line. Kids, learn how to shoot your free throws. It's kind of a disturbing story, but I got to give it a minute and let me talk about this. Because a lot of people, anybody who follows the NFL, remembers quarterback John Kitna. Journeyman quarterback, made the rounds around the league, played for a bunch of different teams, and always managed to find himself on the field. He'd find some playing time somewhere. Well, a very disturbing story emerged on Wednesday afternoon. Matter of fact, I was out having lunch, and the story came across on my phone. So for those that don't know, John Kitna, former NFL quarterback, his son is a quarterback at the University of Florida. I think he's a redshirt freshman, if I'm not mistaken. He's 19 years old. He's played sparingly this year. But Jalen Kitna, the son of John Kitna, was arrested earlier on Wednesday. 2 counts of distribution of child exploitation material and 3 counts of possession of child pornography. That stuff is just always disturbing. And it's particularly disturbing for me. I mean, it gives me a type of PTSD having, and I've shared this publicly before. I was sexually abused as a child. And so anytime I read these stories, it automatically just snaps me back to that place. So I have to kind of numb myself before I talk about these stories. But Kitna's son was arrested by the Gainesville Police Department, booked into the county jail 3:20 p.m. Eastern. He's going to appear in court Thursday morning to hear the charges against him. So there's 5 charges that need to be formalized by the state's attorney's office. Second-degree felonies could result in a prison term of up to 15 years and a fine of up to $10,000. He's been suspended indefinitely from the football program. University of Florida put out your typical garden variety statement, shocked, saddened, the news involving Jalen Kitna, serious charges, we have zero tolerance for such behavior, yada, yada, yada. And again, I just say yada, yada, yada because they're, it's a CYA sort of thing. So police allege that an investigation revealed Kitna was the probable owner of a Discord account. Why does that matter? Well, the news release from the Gainesville Police Department says that police received a tip from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children that a user had distributed an image of child sexual abuse material on Discord. It's a social media platform for those of you that aren't in the know. So that account belonged to Jalen Kitna. Now, after that happens, the Gainesville Police Department interviews Jalen Kitna. And Kitna told them he thought the images he shared were, quote, legal because he found them online. Police say they searched Kitna's electronic devices and found 3 more images of child sexual abuse material. Well, I'm not even going to try to defend it if it was just one image. Where you might try to say, well, maybe, one image, you stumble across something, you accidentally whatever. When you find more than one, one should be disturbing enough that you just say, I'm not going anywhere near this stuff. And I don't even know how to adequately put a story like this into words. There's just a lot of people out there with a lot of weird things going on in their head. And he's 19 years old. So who knows what causes one at 19 to do these sorts of things. And I got to be honest, even if he were convicted in this or he pleads it out, he's going to wind up being on a sexual offender registry. I mean, the kid's life is over. I mean, if this goes the way it's going, and this is one of those instances where you find out, is the law applied equally to everybody? Here's a former NFL quarterback's kid. And you find out, is the law applied equally to everybody? Does the same guy from the inner city who does the same thing that Jalen Kitten is accused of doing here, does he get the same deal that Jalen Kitten is going to get? I don't know. But it's one of those cases where you kind of wonder. You get a good attorney, you plead it out, you get the sexual predator aspect off his record. He doesn't wind up having to register as a sex offender. Before you know it, we're talking about him playing college football again 2 years from now somewhere else. It won't be at the University of Florida, though. You see it all the time. And again, I don't know all the details. All I know is what's being reported, and I'm just talking about it. But even in just talking about it, it makes me physically queasy. Coming from a situation where I know what this is about. It's sad. It's awful. So we'll see what happens, and we'll follow the story. Obviously, he'll be arraigned on Thursday or off to appear in court on Thursday. All right, we got Paige's Picks coming up around the corner. Not Paige's Picks. I keep calling it that. Fridays, we do Paige's Picks. On Wednesday, we do a peek ahead for Paige's Picks. So we'll go through all the NFL games on the Week 13 slate, including the one tomorrow, tell you what we think early on. You can take the advice or you can leave it. It's on the Cash In next on SportsMap Radio. Thanks for being with us. Tomorrow, Thursday Night Football, we'll have it covered for you. We're usually on during the second half of the game. All sorts of live betting opportunities. We'll talk about those. We'll have your post-game coverage and more. Can't wait. We'll get into the NFL Week 13 stuff coming up here in just a couple of minutes. Lakers lead the Blazers 118-105. 4 minutes to go in L.A., so the Lakers on the verge of picking up a victory there. And that'll wrap up the NBA slate for tonight. We're just about done. A couple other things I want to get into before we go, but I want to get into one of the things we do every week on the show. It's easy on Friday to give all of our picks, but I'd like to give you an idea of where our head is at when it comes to the Week 13 NFL slate. And we're there, believe it or not. You know, hard to believe, but it's time to start talking about Week 13 in the NFL. Hard to believe it's just how fast this season has gone by. It feels like yesterday we were starting this show on September 5th, and now here we are. Start of Week 13, and a huge game kicks it off on Thursday night. Buffalo and New England. The Bills are -4. They're -188 on the money line. The total is 43.5, so they are a slight favorite going into New England to take on the Patriots. I like Buffalo. I still don't think New England can muster enough offense, and not many teams could keep up with Buffalo to begin with. So if I had to go anywhere on this game, might be the money line at -188. Might be the Bills at -4. You proceed with caution. Jets on the road to take on the Vikings. I think this is where the Jets come back to reality a little bit. Even with Mike White, even as good as this defense has played, Minnesota in this spot, you would expect a bounce back. I like the Vikings this week. They are -3 at home, and I would probably take them on that -3. 44.5 is the total for that game. -154 on the money line. The Jets +132. Denver Broncos, we talked about them at the top of the show tonight. I mean, but we all know what a mess it is by now, and there ain't any signs of it getting better. You've got, guys not going reportedly to Russell Wilson's birthday party that Sierra threw. I mean, if Sierra sends you an invitation, don't you just say yes because it's Sierra? Guess not. Broncos in Baltimore to take on a Ravens team that's blown 4 fourth-quarter leads this year. In all 4 of their losses, they have led in the fourth quarter. It is remarkable. But here's Baltimore, still a team to be reckoned with, obviously. And the Broncos are just an absolute mess at this point. I don't see how you wouldn't take Baltimore, but the problem is 8.5, kind of tricky. And it's just over the line in terms of the number you would like to see before you would comfortably bet on Baltimore. And again, the way Baltimore's played the fourth quarter games this year, I don't know if I'd touch it. 38.5, very low total. And why would you take the over? 38.5, I'm probably going under. A huge game for the Falcons this week. They're still just a game behind Tampa Bay in the hapless NFC South. It's remarkable. But, 4-7, 5-6, they're one game behind Tom Brady and the Buccaneers in the NFC South right now. And they still have one more game to play with Tampa Bay. So a huge game for the Falcons at home, even though they're 4-7, entertaining the Steelers, who got a great win on Monday night. So it's a short week. You have to like the Falcons in this spot. I know they have been up and down with their play this season. I like Atlanta. They are a home underdog, +1.5. I would take Atlanta. I love home underdogs. Jacksonville coming off the emotional win against the Ravens at home. Jacksonville +1 against Detroit. -108 is the money line on both sides. 51.5 is the total, which still seems high because Detroit's offense has kind of gone meh after a hot start to the season. 51.5 feels like a big number. Tennessee in Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. Definitely one of the games of the week in the NFL. I was talking about it last night with a listener of the show. I don't know why Tennessee didn't go in on Odell Beckham Jr. Other than the character issue, which might still be a hang-up for somebody like a Mike Vrabel, who's a no-nonsense guy. I wouldn't have minded seeing the Titans try to go after him. Talk about a difference maker. They've already got the run game. They're good defensively. And now you throw in a threat like an Odell Beckham Jr. It would have been interesting. It's obviously not going to happen, but Tennessee in Philadelphia to take on an Eagles team that I'm still not buying. This is not a game I would touch, but just to give you the numbers, because that's what we do. Tennessee plus 5.5. Tennessee plus 190 on the money line. Philadelphia minus 225. 44.5 is the total. I would not touch it. I don't trust Philadelphia, and as much as I like Ryan Tannehill, I know a lot of people don't trust him, and I understand why. Cleveland is in Houston to take on the Texans. It's the Deshaun Watson Bowl. I'm debating whether I'm going to even watch this game. I have the ability to, and I just don't know if I want to, because it's just going to give me an uncomfortable feeling in my stomach. Some of the accusers of Watson have actually vowed they are attending the game. Not all of them. Tony Busby, I think, is the attorney for those. Tony Busby or Rusty Hardin? I can't remember. One of those attorneys who takes those cases has actually said some of those accusers of Deshaun Watson plan to be in attendance in Houston when the Browns play the Texans. It's going to be a weird and wild scene. Cleveland is minus 7, minus 335 on the money line. The total is 46.5. Houston plus 270. I would expect an inspired effort by the Texans in that game. I wouldn't touch it. And you know how I feel about home underdogs. Houston's not a very good football team, but could you see him keeping it close? Is Deshaun Watson going to come out there first game after all this time away? We're not just talking about this year. We're talking last year. We're talking about all the time this guy has missed. And you just expect he's going to walk out there and light up the town on the road, hostile environment? I don't buy it. Huge game in the NFC East. And some of this, interdivision stuff is probably what's going to wind up sinking the idea that all four teams in the NFC East make the playoffs. They all still got to play each other. And it's very difficult to maintain records that are going to keep you playoff eligible when you all got to face each other. Washington is in New York to take on the Giants. Giants come off the bad loss in Dallas against the Cowboys in a game in which Dallas just simply proved they are a superior team to the New York Giants. If you didn't believe it after the first matchup with Cooper Rush starting at quarterback for Dallas and the Giants literally with a football late and a chance to tie or win the game, you've got to believe it now. The Giants are the third best team in that division. And if they lose this week, they might be the worst team in that division. Washington's played tough with Taylor Heineke at quarterback. Giants are still trying to convince Odell Beckham Jr. to come back to play at MetLife Stadium. We'll see if he does. But it's the Giants plus 2.5 at home against the Commanders. And it just tells you the odds makers giving no respect to the Giants right now. Love home underdogs. I would take the Giants all day plus 2.5. I told you to take them last Thursday on Thanksgiving. Guess what? As bad as they were, they still covered. They got the backdoor touchdown late, and they covered. I was watching in my bed at a hotel in San Francisco, so I know it happened. That's why we're 25-23 in the NFL this year. Well, that's one of the reasons. One of 25 reasons, in fact. Washington minus 136 on the money line. The Giants plus 116. 40.5 is the total. Green Bay in Chicago to take on the Bears. I've actually bet on the Packers in Paige's picks a couple of times this year, and I've wound up regretting it. I have a feeling I may wind up regretting it again. They're minus 5.5 in Chicago to take on the Bears. Aaron Rodgers is going to play. Packers are minus 200 on the money line. I don't know what's going on with Justin Fields. He doesn't have any receivers to throw the football to. You wonder at this point if it's just smarter for the Bears to play Trevor Siemian the rest of the way, let Justin Fields get healthy and start again next year. Go get him a receiver in the draft, something like that. Packers minus 5.5, though. We'll see where we are on Friday with that one for Page's picks. 43.5 is the total. So the Bears, the home underdog there. Seattle coming off the disastrous loss at home against the Raiders. Seattle minus 7.5 in Los Angeles against the Rams. The Rams plus 275 as the home underdog on the money line. A lot of home underdogs this week. Seattle minus 340 on the money line. 41.5 is the total. The Dolphins and 49ers. This is going to be a great matchup. Miami plus 3.5 in Santa Clara to take on the Niners. Plus 172 on the money line for Miami. The 49ers minus 205. 46.5 is the total. That's an interesting total considering the Niners defense is pretty good, but they're going up against a great offense in Miami. And that Dolphins team does give up some points. It'll be an interesting matchup. Not sure how I feel about it just yet. Got to do some more research on it. Chargers and the Raiders. Chargers and the Raiders. With the Raiders coming off back-to-back walk-off wins. The Raiders home in Vegas to take on the Chargers. Obviously, Raiders cannot afford to lose another game this year if any sort of miracle is to occur. The Chargers, meanwhile, very much in the thick of things in the AFC wild card race. Chargers minus 1.5, minus 126 on the money line. 50.5 is your total. The Raiders plus 108, a modest home underdog. Chiefs and the Bengals. Kansas City, here we come. Bengals are starting to play their best football of the year, probably the game of the week in the NFL. There's a few good ones this week, but this is certainly one of them. Cincinnati, the home dog, plus 2.5. We've seen these teams play in the postseason before. It's a great matchup. Cincinnati plus 112. Kansas City minus 132. The total is 52.5. Over. I don't know what the weather's going to be, but right now, if I was going to do anything in that game, it'd be the total going over. Both teams will score. The Sunday night game, I am sorry, America. I'm sorry, America. You've got to endure the Colts and the Cowboys in Dallas. We've all seen what Indianapolis is right now. Sorry, Jeff Saturday. You're 1-2 as the interim head coach, and you don't know how to call a timeout when you need to. Dallas minus 10.5. Is that the biggest line of the week? I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, Dallas minus 10.5 at home in this game for Indianapolis. Minus 550 on the money line. 43.5 is the total. Indianapolis is plus 410. The Monday night game is the Saints and Buccaneers. Plus 3.5 to the Saints. And plus 164 on the money line. Minus 196 for Tampa Bay. 40.5 is the total. So that's your early look ahead at the lines. That Saints-Buccaneers game is rather interesting considering both teams just continue to scuffle to get through the season. Andy Dalton's just been awful lately. I mean, they got shut out by the Niners 13-0 this week. So that's a look ahead at what we got for Week 13 in the NFL. We'll wrap things up with some news and notes that I just didn't have time to get to during the show. That as we continue on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Getting set to put the wraps on this baby. If you missed any of the show, go right now and subscribe to the Cash In podcast. It's there, baked fresh for you every night. It'll be up there soon after the show. Producer, engineer Michael will be working on it as we speak. And we'll have it up there sometime after the show tonight, or just check it out in the morning. The Cash In podcast, available, I should say, on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Hit me up on Twitter anytime on the air or not, at The Back Page. Again, on Twitter, at The Back Page. We talked about Tiger Woods yesterday on the show with Jason Sobel of Action Network and SiriusXM's PGA channel. Well, Phil Mickelson fired back at Tiger's comments about the Live Tour battle. He said, basically, we got to go and get rid of Greg Norman in order to have any way that the two sides can coexist at the very least. And Phil Mickelson, well, he took a dig at the PGA Tour's financial situation, I guess you could say, and the way they manage their finances. So, interesting to see. The Tour's 2018 tax returns got Phil Mickelson involved in the conversation. $1.6 billion in stocks, $700 million in cash, $1.15 billion in non-liquid assets, Mickelson wrote. This is from the nonprofit section. The for-profit section hasn't been stated since 2012, but was more than the nonprofit part at that time. So, what Phil Mickelson, he's just ready to burn the bridge down with the Tour. It's going to wrap it up for us. Thank you to Michael, Greg, for working on the show tonight. I'm back with you tomorrow night, Thursday Night Football and more on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Bye! All right. You got the podcast orders. You're good to go. All right. No worries. Okay. Thank you, sir. Have a good night. All right. Bye. For those of you watching on the video stream, thanks for watching tonight. I'm done. See you back here on Thursday for NFL football. And I'm sure we'll have a guest. I just don't know who yet, so I can't tell you. We'll see you tomorrow night. I'm Jason. Thanks for watching the Cash In. SportsMap Radio, the SportsMap Radio app, and on Twitch and every other video platform we're on. Bye.